Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Cassie, and this is my October wrap-up, which I read books. I read books. It was very exciting. Just not the 3 books that I picked out for my October TBR. I don't remember exactly what some of the prompts were. I do know one was out of my comfort zone. And I picked a really long fantasy book. Like, over 600 pages, I think it was. And it was an actual, like, in its own world fantasy book. And I did kind of pick something. I did kind of read something that was also like that. Except that it wasn't the book that I picked. But a book came out, and I was hearing a lot about it, and it was all I kind of wanted to read after I got done with reading the first book that I read in the month. So, one book that has been on my TBR, though, finally did get read. Not this last one, October's TBR, but it was a TBR possibly a couple months back, multiple times, I am sure. But the first book that I read, which I think I mentioned in another video because it was a little bit of crossover. I only read like a certain amount of it, not enough for it to be on the previous month. But I did manage to read and finish Stephen King, The Institute, early November. Not over no. Early October. Early October. So this was the first book that I kind of read. I read a portion of it at the very end of September, and so it was like maybe 30% or something. But I think I gave this either a 3.5 or a 4. I probably rounded it up on Goodreads to a 4. I did. So it's kind of sitting at a like 3.5, 4, I think, for me. I did enjoy it, but as I might have mentioned before, I have a love-hate with Stephen King, because every book that I pick up by him, it takes a good 40% of me really, really trying to read the book. And it just kind of feels like pulling teeth for me the first 40-ish% to read the book. But then once I get past that 40%, which could take me a few days, I finally really get into the book. I do not want to put it down. And I finish, I read the whole book. So I have a little bit of a love-hate with Stephen King's books. It's like, I like them. Generally, I like them. I just don't particularly like 30-40% for some reason. I don't know why it is so hard for me to get through the first 30-40% of a Stephen King book. I don't really know. But I did it. I read it. Really liked it. Really enjoyed it. I did have to have a bit of help getting through this. Because like I said, that 30-40%. So I did the interactive reading, I guess, where you read, but you're also listening to the audiobook. So I did that probably for the first 50% of this book. And the reason I bring that up is just because I didn't like the format of the audiobook. Because the chapters in this book have chapters, or maybe it's like there's a part, like it doesn't really say part, it just says, I think, like let's see, I think like the Night Knocker, like that's where it starts. It's the Night Knocker. So it doesn't really say that's a part, it doesn't really say it's a chapter, but then after that you have multiple chapters within that section. And then you get to the next part and it starts over at chapter 1 in that part. Well, it was really hard for me to find where I needed to be in the chapters when you only give me the option of picking the part. So I would find, I'm in, this part, the Night Knocker. Great. But I have to try to fast forward to find where I am chapter-wise within that. So that was a little annoying. And I'm actually pretty sure that when I was doing the ebook, that it kind of had that same setup as you could find the parts, but you couldn't find the chapters within the parts. So you would click on the table of contents for this part, but then you would have to kind of just scroll through to find the chapter, which was a little irritating. Because I might read some without the audiobook, and then I would read some, without the book and just the audio, and then I'd have to try to figure out, It was a little annoying. So, I'm thinking that's why it's kind of a 3.54, because it's just the first 30-40% as normal, and then, of course, the whole audiobook and ebook chapter thing was just, slightly irritating. So, you're probably wondering what book took place of my uncomfortable or out of my comfort zone book. Well, that would be Alchemized by Sen Lin Yu, which I'll try to put a picture in the corner for this one. So I was hearing all about this book. I wanted to read the book. And so, guess what? I read the book. And surprisingly, it only took me 2 days to get through it. And those are work days, I believe. So, I was only able to really read after work. But I gave it 5 stars. I have never read the fanfiction that came first, Manacled. I never read it. I've heard about it over the past couple years, but I just never read it because, honestly, Dramoni was never a thing for me. So never really had the inclination to pick up the fanfic. But it did sound like it had an interesting premise. I know that she kind of had to change the characters a little bit. She had to change the magic system, obviously, and she had to change the world. But everything else, I think people have said that have read both was pretty much the exact same. So I don't know if I read the fanfiction at this point, if I would enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Alchemized. I don't know. But I did enjoy Alchemized, so that's something. I gave it 5 stars. It had some parts in it where I was just kind of like, I guess maybe because it's a standalone and it was so long, maybe I was thinking that, does it really need to have this? And why do we have that? And there were some parts that, I don't know, mostly towards the end, I guess, where things just kind of seemed a little anticlimactic and not needed. But I don't know. That's just me. It was over 1,000 pages, or almost 1,000 pages, so I feel like any book that is that long probably doesn't exactly need to be that long. But I'm also kind of okay, well, I only have to buy the one book. I feel like there are some, duologies and sometimes even some trilogies that could just be one book. You just put it all in one book. And then I would only have to buy one book. But yeah, no, that's not how that works. I know that's not how that works. But yeah, I read Alchemize and I gave that 5 stars. The next book I read. Well, I mean, technically, I read a kid's book. Because I was helping my friend's son with some tutoring, and one of the books that he had to read was like, I think it was the second, he was reading something in the second book for this little series, and it's Cat and Cat Adventures. I don't know if you can see that. You kind of can't if I do that. I might try to put a picture again up in the corner. But he read a chapter, like, short little picture book chapter to me of this book, and I was like, this is cute. I like this. Like, I'm invested. I kind of want to see what's going on. How this all started. And so they had Cat and Cat Adventures, I believe, on Kindle Unlimited. The first one. Not any of the other ones, just the first one. So I'm like, I want to check this out. So I totally read the first book of Cat and Cat Adventures, The Quest for Snacks. And it was adorable. It's 96 pages on Kindle. Lots of pictures, not a lot of words, but still adorable. Absolutely adorable. So I gave that one, I gave it 4 stars. Just because it was so downright adorable. So I read that. I did read that. And I do kind of want to read book 2, 3, and 4, I think is what I've seen on my Kindle that they have taken out from the library to read. I do kind of want to read them. So, yeah. That was the next book, technically. But then, after that little book, then I read The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen, which I've never read anything by her before. So I think this technically fills another TBR prompt that I had for October. It was just, I think I was going to try to read The Housemaid. But obviously that did not happen. I mean, technically the other one Alchemize could work for it too, but that is more the out of my comfort zone book. This could be I've never read this new author before. So, The Games Gotta Play. I saw that the second book came out. I thought it was a duology for some reason, and I know the second book came out a couple months ago, something like that. And I thought for some reason it was a duology, but apparently I think it's a trilogy, so I kind of messed up on that. But this is a book 1 of the Crucible, is what they call it. And I gave it 5 stars. It is Greek mythology based. And so it is Hades is kind of one of the main characters, I would guess, in this book. But I want to say that I don't want to say it's not in its own world. It's in this world, except for, it has Greek mythology, Greek gods in it. And, different things different choices were made, I think. So, I don't want to say, it's a fantasy, but I want to say it's an urban fantasy. So I know that some people like that distinction of whether something was fantasy or urban fantasy or something. I don't know. But this is considered an urban fantasy, I think, because it kind of takes place in our actual world. Just different choices were made and, gods. So if you like Trials, the this has that in it. It's game trials type situation where, life or death happens. It's very interesting. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I want to read the second one, but then I'm also like, do I want to read the second one and then have to reread 2 books possibly? Or try to remember 2 books possibly by the time the 3rd book comes out? I haven't decided yet. I have yet to decide. But this is the technically 4th book. Is it the 4th book? Hold on. Was this the 4th book? 1, 2, yeah, 4th book. This is the 4th book that I read in October. And then the last book that I read in October should be a surprise to no one. Although it might. Bonds of Hercules by Jasmine Maas. Look at that. It's so pretty. First book, is Blood of Hercules, which might be back on my shelves on this one particularly, just a shelf up. But this also, I believe, is kind of an urban fantasy. As it does take place in our world, it's just that it's kind of a dystopian of our world, and Greek gods exist in this world, as well as their children and whatnot. And so there's definitely an interesting system in here between, I guess, the lighter Greek gods and the darker Greek gods, and how they're one or the other treats the other, and the whole magic system. Like, it's a very interesting world. And it is a duology, so it is finished. And it also is a why choose. So keep that in mind. And it's also considered like a dark romance. So, it was really, really good. There were some parts of it that I felt towards the end again that were kind of anticlimactic. It didn't really wrap it as in a neat bow as I would have liked it to be tied up in, considering that this is the end of the duology. Now, I don't know if she's going to continue with a different character in this world and have another duology, because she does have another series, I think Psycho Shifters, where she does do that, where Jasmine Maas does do that, where you start off with, I think, the first 2 books and you're following one character in a certain thing, and then you're still in that world, but then the 3rd book, which is another set of duologies, follows another character. And then the 5th book, which is another set of duologies, still taking place in that world, just follows a different character. So I don't know if maybe that's the plan here, and that's why things are left off the way that they have been left off. But if that is the case, okay, great. I would love to continue reading. If that is not the case, I'm a little upset with the ending. But anyway, I gave this 4 stars. Mostly because there were some things, like, mostly towards the end, and there were some parts even in the middle where I was kind of like, this just feels like filler. Like, we don't really need it, but you're putting it in there type situation. I don't know. So I didn't love it as much as book 1, but I still did like it. Like, I did still really like it. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Now, I was gonna put another book in this wrap up, because I wasn't really sure. I think I started it. Yeah, no. I wasn't sure when I read it. For some reason, I had thought that I read it in October, but I guess I read it in November, so it's gonna be on my November wrap up. Yeah, I've already read another book, right? It's great. Uh, um, so yes, I read 5 books in October, and I want to say that two of them technically, um, two of them technically, were kind of on my TBR as prompts, even if they weren't the exact books that I picked out. I know that's not really how that works. I know, but still, I'm just gonna, yeah. It makes me happy to think about it that way. So, anyway, that's kind of it. I am hoping to get to the first book that I actually picked out on my official November TBR tomorrow, one of the two. I'm not sure. We'll find out. So then I can start reading that, because I actually do want to read it. In fact, I really want to read every single book that I have on my TBR right now for my November TBR. So, fingers crossed that the mood doesn't change. As I really do want to read these books. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more by me, subscribe, and if you like this video, like it. But until next time, bye.